All right, so this is a quick run through of the test review for SOHCAHTOA and trig proofs. So for this first page, we're going to use SOHCAHTOA, which we've talked about in class. So you should know what those stand for the test. Pay attention to the instructions. Here we're rounding everything to the nearest integer. So number one, the reference angle they give us is 15 degrees. So using that reference angle, the side we're trying to find is x. X is the opposite side from 15 degrees. And 12 is your hypotenuse because it's opposite the right angle. So O and H, that means we're going to take the sine of 15 degrees and set it equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse. And then we're going to cross multiply. One cross product here is 12 times the sine of 15 degrees. The other cross product is just 1 times x. So the left side, just put it in your calculator. As always, make sure your calculator's in degree mode. You can check that by pressing the mode button. And just make sure degree is highlighted. And then just type in the problem. 12 times the sine of 15. Close your parenthesis. You get 3.1 rounded to the nearest whole number is 3. So that is your answer for number 1. All right, number 2, 53 degrees is your reference angle. 8 is your opposite side. X is hypotenuse. So again, we're going to use the trig function, the sine trig function once again on this problem. So we're going to take the sine 53 degrees, set it equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse side. This one's a little different though when we cross multiply. This time x is at the bottom. So when we multiply there, we get x times the sine of 53. And the other cross product is just 1 times 8. So we've got an added step before we put this in the calculator. That's to get x by itself. You have to divide by sine of 53. So our answer is going to be 8 on the top, sine of 53 on the bottom when we put it in the calculator. Watch your typos for this test. Round to the nearest whole number should be 10. Number 3, 19 is the opposite side from the given angle, and 27 is this time the adjacent side. 27 is not opposite, and it's not the hypotenuse, so that means it's adjacent. So you're going to use the tangent trig function. So the tangent, this time they don't give us the angle. So the tangent of x equals the opposite side over the adjacent side. Anytime you're finding the angle, it doesn't help to cross multiply. So the only way to solve this is to press the second tangent button in the calculator. I'll do that in the calculator here in just a second. So second tangent, 19 divided by 27, just like so. Remember, this is a degree. So this should be a number between 0 and 90. In this case, we get 35 degrees. Rounded to the nearest whole degree. That's our answer, 35. Same thing on 4. Again, on number 4, you're finding the angle, so you're going to hit the second button to calculate. But first, you're going to figure out which trig function you're using. 12 is the opposite side from x, and 7 is the hypotenuse because it's opposite the right. So the setup for this one is going to be the sine of x equals the opposite side over the hypotenuse. I just realized there's a mistake on this problem. We're actually not going to do number 4 because the hypotenuse should always be the longest side of the right triangle, and 7 is not the longest side of the triangle. So this one we're not going to do. If you try this second side, 12 divided by 7 in your calculator, you'll get an error since that's not a possible ratio for sine. That's the only one we can't do though. 5 we should be able to do. 5, they give us the angle, 46 degrees. 61's the hypotenuse. X is our adjacent side. So A and H, that means we're going to use the cosine trig function for the first time. The cosine of the angle is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. This time there's a one-step problem when we cross multiply. One cross product gives us 61 times the cosine of 46 degrees. The other cross product is just x. So we get an answer of 42 degrees. We're added to the nearest whole number. All right, last one here. We'll find the angle. So we'll hit the second key button in the calculator here in just a second. 9 is the opposite side, and 14 is the adjacent side. This time it's okay that 14 is bigger than 9 because neither one of these, of course, are the hypotenuse. So this one we can do in the calculator. So tangent of x equals opposites over adjacents. Which means x is going to equal second tangent 9 divided by 14. So second tangent 9 divided by 14. Round it up. 32.7 rounds up. So 33 degrees. Most of the questions on the test are actually like number 7, where you're solving the right triangle. Solving the right triangle, of course, means finding all missing sides, find all missing angles. So this particular problem, we need to find 2 of the angles and 1 of the sides. So let's start with finding an angle. We're going to have to use trig at least once in this problem. So in this case, we'll have to use the second key in the calculator since we have to find one of the angles. So let's just find angle x. So if we're going to find angle x, that means 9 is the opposite side from angle x, and 12.5 is the hypotenuse. So that means to find angle x, we need to use the sine trig function. And again, since we're finding the angle, so you have to hit second sine. That's a 9, not a 19. Type it in the calculator. So we get about 46 degrees for angle x. All right, it's important to know that if you wanted to find angle y first, you could have. Obviously, you would have used a different trig function. You would have used the cosine trig function if you wanted to find angle y first. Ultimately, it's not going to, shouldn't affect your answer. But since we found angle x first, we know there's 180 degrees in a triangle. So to find the third angle, we can just take 180, subtract the 2 angles we know that are 90 and 46. 180 minus 90 minus 46 is 44. So that's angle y. This little y, so that little y, that is talking about the side that's opposite angle y. So angle y, we've already got labeled over here. The side opposite angle y is over here. So segment XZ is the side we're finding. That should make sense because that's the only side that we don't know in this problem. Again, you could use trig to find that side, or you can do, in this case, a much quicker way, do Pythagorean theorem. The side we're trying to find is one of the short sides, so the setup for this would be y squared plus 9 squared equals 12.5 squared. So ultimately, we take the square root of 75.25, which is about 8.67, round it up, gives us 9. All right, so again, most of the questions, in fact, I think all the questions where you're doing just trig with right triangles, I think there's only a few of these on the test. You have to solve the right triangle, meaning find all missing sides, all missing angles. All right, so the next page, application word problems for 8 through 11. Now, a lot of different ways to do these, but the quickest way I can show you for this video is pretty much you can draw all your triangles like this. And generally speaking, unless there's a problem that talks about the angles made with the vertical, the angle of the problem is always going to be in this bottom left corner. So this problem tells us it's talking about a wheelchair ramp that has an angle of elevation of 18 degrees. Angle is going to go there automatically. Now, next thing I like to look at is what is the question asking? So this is going to tell us where we're going to put our variable in the problem. So the question is, how high above ground is the entrance to the library from the ground? So if we're talking about a wheelchair ramp that goes up to the Old Town Library, the height is going to be represented by the vertical. And generally speaking, the height is always going to be represented by the vertical. So that's our x. The only other number they give us in the problem is 15 feet. That tells us the wheelchair ramp that leads to the library is 15 feet long. If you know anything about what a wheelchair ramp looks like, it's of course the slanted distance of your right triangle. So that's the picture you're going to draw. So to solve for x, x is the opposite side, 15 is the hypotenuse. So that means we're going to use the sine trig function. Cross multiply 15 times the sine of 18 degrees is equal to 1 times x. So type that in the calculator. .6 rounded to the nearest whole number would be 5. And we want to give it a label. This problem they used feet. So our answer, we're going to use feet. So this wheelchair ramp from the ground to the tip top is 5 feet high. All right, number 9, same thing. Draw your triangle. Draw it the same way. They give us an angle. Say it's the angle of elevation. It is 10.3 degrees. So I'll put that there in the bottom left corner. The question says find the length of the water slide. So our water slide is not going to be the vertical. That's not a slide. Find the length of the water slide is going to be finding x. Of course, a water slide is the slanted distance. And then the only other number they give us in this problem is the vertical drop of 240 feet. So that should be a dead giveaway that 240 feet is going to be the vertical side of that right triangle. So really there's a setup just like the last problem, except this time we're trying to solve the hypotenuse. So it's still the sine trig function. The sine of 10.3 equals 240 over x. You have to be careful. This setup is a little different because x is on the bottom. So it's x times the sine of 10.3 equals 240. One added step, divide both sides by the sine of 10.3. Don't put this into your calculator until the very end. So the length of the world's longest water slide is 1,342 feet, rounded down to the nearest whole number. All right, a couple more. Number 10. Number 10 says a child holds the end of a kite 32 inches above ground. So when we draw this triangle, we still essentially are drawing it the same way. I'm going to go ahead and draw the triangle just like this. The angle is 68 degrees. I'll put it right here in the bottom of the corner. The only difference is that angle isn't made off the ground. It's made from the point the child is holding the kite. So we have to picture this as a child holding the kite string. Let me draw my child a little bit closer to where the string starts. So we have to picture this kite right here, and this is our string, this slanted distance right here. We've had enough of these kite problems to know that that's your slanted distance in this problem. The child is holding it 32 inches above ground. So we know this distance right here is 32 inches. The question is, how high off the ground is the kite? So again, we see that word high or height. That's talking about the vertical. So now we're going to find that side of the triangle. The one other number they give us is there's 580 inches of string of kite out in this problem. So of course that's a slanted distance. So we want to solve for x. Again, it's the sine trig function. So you're going to set sine of 68 equal to x over 580. Cross multiply. That should give you 538 feet. That's not your answer, though. That's just the value for x. Sorry, that's not feet. That should be inches in this problem. So the question says, how high off the ground is the kite? You have to take 538 and add 32 to actually get the height off the ground for this problem. So 538 plus 32 should be 570. So the kite is 570 inches vertically off the ground. All right, last problem. The world's tallest fountain is not in Manassas. The angle of elevation to the top of the fountain from 755 feet from the base is 36.5 degrees. Again, I'm going to draw my angle right here, bottom left corner, 36.5. The question says find the height of the fountain. So you see that word height, that's going to be talking about the vertical, so that's our x. The word base, of course, the word base really just means the bottom of an object. So a lot of times when we see that word base, we're talking about the bottom side of the triangle. So 755 is going to go to the bottom side of the triangle. That's the distance from the base of the fountain to this point where the angle of elevation starts. So finally, we use a different trig function. We're going to use the tangent trig function because O is the opposite side, 755 is the adjacent side. So the tangent of 36.5 degrees equals opposite over adjacent. This is a quick one. Cross multiply one way, you just get x. Cross multiply the other way, put that in the calculator, you should get your answer. Like about 559 feet. So that fountain is almost 560 feet tall. All right, so that's the first part of the test review video. The second video will cover the proof section of this test.